I'm organizing the stack of mail on my desk when I spot an envelope from Bellamy Gardens, the most exclusive wedding venue in town. Strange. I don't remember receiving anything from them before. I slide my finger under the flap and pull out a neatly folded contract. The elegant letterhead catching the morning light streaming through my apartment window. My coffee cup freezes halfway to my lips as I scan the document. There it is. My signature at the bottom of a contract authorizing payments totaling $76,000 for my sister Destiny's wedding. Except it isn't my signature. Not really. The loops are too round, the slant too steep. It's a good imitation, but I'd know my own handwriting anywhere. The room spins slightly as realization crashes over me. This is Destiny's handiwork. Those distinctive curls at the end of each letter. The way she dots her I's slightly to the right. She's forged my name on a contract for $76,000. My fingers go numb. The coffee cup shatters against the hardwood floor. Dark liquid splashes across my bare feet, but I barely feel it. This can't be happening, I whisper to the empty room. I grab my phone with trembling hands, dialing the venue's number printed at the top of the contract. My heart pounds so hard, I can feel each beat in my throat. Bellamy Gardens. How may I help you? A cheerful voice answers. This is Andy Collins. I manage. My voice unnaturally high. I'm calling about a wedding contract for, Destiny Collins. Oh, Miss Collins. Yes, we're so excited about your sister's special day. Everyone here is talking about your generous gift. It's not often we see such a beautiful gesture between siblings. The first tear slides down my cheek before I can stop it. My generous gift. The one I never agreed to. The one I explicitly refused. Thank you, I choke out before hanging up. I sink into my chair, memories flooding back unbidden. 16-year-old me working double shifts at the ice cream shop while Destiny lounged by the community pool. My graduation money borrowed for her spring break trip to Cancun. The countless loans that disappeared into the black hole of her wants and needs. You're the responsible one, Mom would say, as if it were a compliment rather than a life sentence. Destiny's just finding herself. 2 months ago at Sunday dinner, when Destiny flashed her enormous engagement ring and Dad looked at me expectantly, we were thinking, he'd said, refilling his wine glass. Since you've got that promotion coming, you could help give your sister the wedding she deserves. I'd felt everyone's eyes on me waiting. My hands had trembled beneath the table as I found my voice. I can't afford that I'd said the words barely audible. I'm still paying off my student loans. The silence that followed had been deafening. Mom's disappointed sigh, Dad's furrowed brow, Destiny's pout. Family takes care of family. Andy, Dad, had finally said, his voice carrying the weight of authority that had shaped our entire childhood. That's how we raised you, Em. Mom had reached across the table, patting my hand. Don't you want your sister to be happy after everything you've accomplished? Surely you can manage this one thing. But you have that promotion coming. Destiny had chimed in as if my money were already hers to spend. The venue deposit is due next week. At that moment, I'd seen myself clearly for the first time, not a daughter or sister, but an ATM with a pulse, a resource to be tapped whenever Destiny needed something shiny and new. Now staring at the forged contract, my phone pings with a new email notification. I glance down, seeing the subject line. Interior design position. Charleston office interested in your portfolio. Eleanor from work had mentioned this opportunity last week. 3 states away. A fresh start. I pick up the contract again, running my finger over the forgery. All those years of sacrificing, of putting my needs last, of being the responsible one. And this is how they repay me. With theft, with fraud. This ends now, I whisper. And something shifts inside me. Something that feels dangerously close to strength. Sleep refuses to come that same night. At 3:00 in the morning, my laptop screen illuminates my face as I search through years of emails. My fingers feel numb, disconnected from my body as I type wedding into the search bar. The results populate my screen. They're buried among wedding spam and Pinterest notifications. I find it an email thread between Mom, Dad, and Destiny from 2 months ago. The subject line reads, Andy's contribution. My stomach knots as I click. She'll give in eventually. Mom wrote, she always does. Remember how she insisted she wouldn't pay for Destiny's car repairs last year? Within a week, she wrote the check. Destiny's reply appears below. If not, we'll figure something out. She's got the credit for it. A wave of nausea washes over me. They weren't just asking for my help. They were planning to take it regardless of my answer. They've been manipulating me for years. I whisper to my empty apartment. I open a new spreadsheet and title it, Family Loans. With methodical precision, I scroll through bank statements, credit card bills, and old emails. Each entry represents a promise broken, a debt unpaid. The summer I worked double shifts to lend Destiny money for her trip to Cancun. The graduation gift from Grandma that disappeared into Mom's temporary need. Dad's business venture that required just a small investment. By sunrise, the spreadsheet contains dozens of entries spanning nearly a decade. The total at the bottom glares back at me, $42,387, and now a $76,000 wedding venue on top of it all. I rub my eyes burning from exhaustion and tears. I refuse to shed. The Christmas memory surfaces unbidden Destiny's pleading voice as she borrowed my credit card for just one small gift for Mom. The January statement showed $3,000 in charges from designer boutiques. My phone buzzes at 9 that morning. A text from Destiny. Just saw the bridal suite at Bellamy. It's amazing. I'm thinking we should upgrade the flower package too. Only an extra $1 for Kelvin. Thoughts attached is a photo of her, posing in a plush room, champagne glass, raised her fiancé nowhere in sight. I don't respond. 20 minutes later, Mom calls. Andy, honey. Did you see Destiny's message about the flowers? The venue needs to know by tomorrow. I'm not paying for flowers, Mom. My voice sounds stronger than I feel. A heavy sigh travels through the phone. This attitude isn't like you, Andy. What will people think if Destiny's wedding looks act cheap? The Henderson family has already commented on how generous you're being. Everyone's talking about it. I never agreed to pay for anything. Family supports family. That's how we raised you. Her voice drops. An expertly crafted mixture of disappointment and shame. I just hope you're not becoming one of those selfish career women who forget where they came from. After we hang up, I check my credit score, something I haven't done since buying my car last year. The number has dropped nearly 40 points. A hard inquiry from Bellamy Gardens appears in the activity log, along with a new line of credit. They didn't just forge my signature. They're actively using my credit. My phone rings again, Eleanor from work. Hey, did you think any more about that Charleston position? The hiring manager called me again yesterday. They're really interested in your portfolio. I didn't realize they were that serious, I say, straightening in my chair. Dead serious. The salary is 20% higher than what you're making now, plus relocation assistance. And frankly, Andy, her voice softens. You'd be away from all the family drama you've mentioned. For the first time in days, something like hope flutters in my chest. After we hang up, I call James, the only friend who knows the full extent of my family's financial expectations. They forged my signature, James, for $76,000. Silence hangs between us. Then that's not normal, Andy. That's exploitation. That's a crime. His words land like permission validation I didn't know I needed. What if I just... The question emerges before I fully form the thought. Honestly, it might be your only option. They'll drain you dry otherwise. Later, I sit at my kitchen table updating my resume while Mom sends increasingly frequent texts about wedding details. My hands shake as I type, but not from fear, from something that feels dangerously close to possibility. The interview is scheduled for Monday next week during my lunch break. While my family thinks I'm reviewing fabric swatches, I'll be interviewing for a job 3 states away. Thank you for the recommendation. I tell Eleanor when I see her in the break room the next morning. You've earned it. She squeezes my shoulder. Your designs are exceptional. Charleston would be lucky to have you. For the first time in weeks, I smile. really smile. I picture a life where my paycheck belongs to me, where no one has access to my credit cards, where family gatherings don't end with my bank account lighter. My phone buzzes with a text from Mom. Destiny added monogrammed napkins to the reception. Only $3 per guest. We're at 300 now. Will you call the venue to approve? I silence the phone and slide it into my desk drawer. Then I open my calendar and block Thursday lunch for important personal business. 3 states might not be far enough, but it's a start. Sunday dinner at my parents' house feels like walking into a trap. Before I even hang up my coat, Aunt Mabel corners me with a tear-eyed hug. "You sweet, generous girl," she says, patting my cheek. "Funding Destiny's entire wedding. Your mother told everyone." My stomach twists. I think there's been a misunderstanding. Andy. Mom swoops in, linking her arm through mine. "The Hendersons were just asking about the venue. Come tell them how you insisted on Bellamy Gardens." The living room buzzes with relatives and family friends all smiling at me with approval. I haven't earned and don't want. Dad stands by the fireplace holding court. My daughter Andy wouldn't hear of anything less than the best. He boasts to his golf buddies. She said, "Destiny deserves a perfect day. Words I never said. A generosity I never offered." Destiny flutters between groups, the center of attention in a pale pink dress. She catches my eye across the room and bounces over. Something large cradled in her arms. "Look what arrived today." She thrusts an elaborate floral arrangement at me. Crystal teardrops hang from silver-dusted roses. Sample centerpieces only 12 per table, and we need 30 tables minimum. I told them you said the skies is the limit. 30 tables. My voice comes out strangled. "How many people are you inviting?" Mom appears with her leather-bound planner. "We're at 300 now. That feels right for our family, don't you think? 300 guests at a venue I never agreed to pay for." My head pounds. The final guest count is due next week. Destiny continues oblivious to my expression. "Oh, and the planner needs your credit card for the deposit on the ice sculpture." The room spins slightly. I mumble something about needing air and escape to the back porch. Monday lunch break. I sit in my car during lunch hard hammering as my laptop screen fills with the face of Gregory Winters, creative director at Charleston Home and Design. "Your portfolio shows remarkable restraint," he says, studying something off-screen. "Most designers your age overdo it, but your spaces breathe." "Thank you. I believe in creating rooms people actually want to live in." My voice comes out steadier than I expect. "What salary range are you looking for?" 3 months ago, this question would have made me stammer apologies for wanting to be paid. Today something shifts based on my experience and the Charleston market. I'm looking for $82,000 annually plus standard benefits. The words emerge clear and confident. Gregory raises his eyebrows, impressed rather than offended. "That's precisely our range for this position." When he makes a joke about Southern hospitality being more than just a saying in Charleston, I laugh a real laugh that startles me with its authenticity. "We'll be in touch very soon," he promises as we wrap up. I sit in my silent car afterward, realizing my hands haven't trembled once. During that week, I gather my documents for the confrontation, and that's how the week passes. Saturday brunch arrives with an unwelcome surprise. I'm buttering toast when the doorbell rings. "Who could that be?" Mom asks, with a performance of confusion. The answer comes in the form of Marissa Williams, wedding planner extraordinaire, who breezes into the dining room with 3 bulging portfolios. "Andy, finally we meet." She extends a manicured hand. "Your sister speaks so highly of you. Now I brought the updated invoices for your approval." "My approval?" I ask, accepting the folder she thrusts at me. I flip through pages of extravagant expenses. Custom champagne flutes, monogrammed napkins, a string quartet, imported orchids. Each bears a notation. A. Collins. Approval required. These charges seem excessive. I say, carefully watching Destiny from the corner of my eye. "What's this $10,000 line item for lighting?" Marissa frowns. "But your sister said you specifically requested premium theatrical lighting for the dance floor." Destiny's face drains of color. Andy loves dramatic lighting. Right, Andy. Could I see all the contracts, please? My voice remains calm despite the rage building in my chest. Andy's just being thorough. Mom interjects, reaching for the coffee pot. Marissa, have you tried my cinnamon rolls? Let me fix you a plate. As they bustle toward the kitchen, I snap photos of the invoices with my phone. That evening, James brings takeout and legal research to my apartment. In this state, you can break a lease without penalty if you can prove identity theft, he says, spreading papers across my coffee table, especially with documentation showing your signature was forged. Eleanor sends 3 links to affordable apartments in Charleston's north area. Not glamorous, her message reads, but clean, safe, and 20 minutes from the office. I click through the virtual tour of a 1-bedroom with a small balcony. The rent is reasonable. The distance from my family, priceless. The official email arrived to my private email account on Tuesday morning, and I got the job. The salary matches what I requested. The start date is 3 weeks away. I drive to an empty parking lot to make the call. I'm delighted to accept, I tell Gregory, my voice strong and certain. That night I digitally sign a lease agreement for the Charleston apartment. The move-in date aligns perfectly with my escape plan. 2 more weeks until I escape. I whisper to my reflection. Standing in my apartment on Friday night, I survey what I've built through years of hard work. The vintage desk I refinished myself. The watercolor I splurged on after my first promotion. The bookshelf filled with design references. On my dresser sits a photo from my design school graduation. I'm beaming, proud and hopeful, unaware of how my family would use that hope against me. Tears slide down my cheeks, but they feel different. Cleansing rather than broken. I deserve to keep what I've earned, I say aloud to the empty room. The weekend becomes a strategic operation. I record Mom discussing Andy's contribution to the wedding. I organize bank statements showing unusual charges. I document every text where I explicitly refuse to pay. Monday morning, I call a moving company. We need to schedule for a specific time. I explain the 14th around noon. We can do that. The scheduler confirms. Any particular reason for the precise timing? Yes, I say, drafting an email to the Bellamy Gardens venue, explaining the signature forgery. My family will be at a cake tasting. The moving day arrives with perfect weather. From my window, I watch Mom's SUV pull away with Dad, Destiny, and the wedding planner inside. My phone vibrates continuously with Destiny's messages about fondant options. 10 minutes later, the moving truck rumbles into the parking lot. I take a deep breath, my hand on the doorknob. The movers head up the stairs as my phone lights up again. 7 missed calls from Destiny in the last 3 minutes. The game is beginning. I smile and open the door to my future. We'll start with the labeled boxes. I tell the 2 men in matching blue uniforms. My voice sounds foreign to my ears. Steady, authoritative. Nothing like the hesitant murmur I've used around my family for 27 years. Inside, I hand the movers a detailed floor plan while dialing my landlord. Mr. Peterson answers on the second ring. I've documented the identity theft situation. I explain sliding the folder of evidence into my messenger bag. The lease break fee should be waived under tenant protection laws. Wouldn't want this happening to my own daughter, he says after reviewing my documents. I'll have the paperwork ready tomorrow. I hang up a small victory, warming my chest. The movers work with military precision, wrapping my carefully curated furniture pieces while I sit cross-legged on the floor, laptop balanced on my knees. With a few keystrokes, I transfer my accounts to the Charleston branch. Another click cancels my credit cards, requesting new numbers for the replacements. My phone buzzes. Mom's name flashes on the screen. The 5th call in 30 minutes. I silence it, but seconds later the voicemail notification appears. Andrea Collins. Mom's voice wavers between anger and panic. Where are you? The venue needs decisions on lighting packages by 3. Call me immediately. Yater. 3 more voicemails follow in quick succession. I play each one, recording them as evidence. As the movers empty my bedroom, my phone pings with a text from Destiny. What the hell? Andy. The venue says you haven't confirmed anything. I swear if you ruin this for me, I'll never forgive you. 10 seconds later. Answer your damn phone. 20 seconds. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us. Each message forms another link in a chain of evidence. I save them all. Dad's voice booms from the next voicemail. Family takes care of family. Andrea, you have responsibilities here. Don't make me come find you. K. I save this one twice. As I pack other boxes, the buzzing pauses long enough for me to check Facebook. Mom's status update appears at the top of my feed. Heartbroken when children forget where they come from after everything we sacrifice as parents. Comments flood in beneath it. My college roommate Lisa writes, Andy is the most responsible person I know. There must be some misunderstanding. My cousin Jennifer chimes in. Wait, I thought the wedding was being scaled back. Aunt Carol told me it was costing over $70,000. Destiny's bridesmaid Tara asks, who's paying for all this? I thought Andy was just handling the coordination, not the cost. I smile as the first cracks appear in their carefully constructed narrative. My phone rings again, James this time. The truck with your bookshelf and desk just left my place, he says. Everything's secure in my spare room until you're ready. Thanks, James. I don't know what I'd stop. You do the same for me. He pauses. Eleanor called. Your office is ready whenever you arrive. The weight on my shoulders lightens for the first time in months. Your new landlord emailed. James continues. She's fine with the early move-in, and Sarah from college says her guest room is yours for the transition week. Tears blur my vision as I realize I'm not doing this alone. My laptop pings with an email notification. The wedding venue's logo appears in the subject line. Urgent payment deadline notice. I open it, reading the polite but firm reminder that the next installment of $22,000 is due in 3 days, or the reservation will be canceled. My phone buzzes with a text from my mother's friend who works at the catering company. Your mom asked me to extend the deposit deadline again. I can't keep doing this, Andy. Business is business. Another notification, a message from Destiny's future mother-in-law. Andy as parents. We are concerned about the wedding finances. Could we discuss this before Sunday's dinner? My stomach flips as I realize how quickly their house of cards is collapsing. Later, while the movers load the last of my belongings, a text from Destiny's roommate pops up. Just for your information, Destiny's crying in her room about possibly having to cancel the florist and photographer. I take a deep breath as I prepare to walk out of my apartment for the last time. My gaze catches on the lone coffee mug I've left behind. The one that shattered the morning I discovered the forged contract. I've glued it back together, leaving visible cracks running through the ceramic. It sits on the counter with a note. Some things once broken can never be the same. Have you ever had to walk away from a situation to protect yourself? What gave you the courage? 4 days after moving, the text messages arrive like a swarm of hornets. 23. In the first hour after Mom discovers my empty apartment. 37 more by nightfall. How could you abandon your family, Mom writes. Dad's voice crackles through my voicemail. There could be legal consequences for backing out now, Andy. Think about what you're doing. I place my phone on the coffee table of my new Charleston apartment, watching it vibrate with incoming calls. The late afternoon sun casts long shadows across the hardwood floors. I've been here exactly 4 days, and already it feels more like home than any place I've lived before. Aunt Meredith calls next. Your mother is hysterical, dear. Everyone's so confused about what's happening with the wedding. Can't you just come to your senses? I let her message play to completion, noting how easily my relatives have been enlisted as reinforcements. The calendar on my kitchen wall shows the wedding date circled in red. 1 week from today. My phone lights up with Destiny's name. Against my better judgment, I answer. You selfish, grateful witch, she hisses. After everything we've done for you, everything you've done for me. I repeat, my voice steady in a way that surprises me. Pay for the wedding or you're dead to me, she says. Simple as that. That's your choice to make. I end the call before she can respond. My laptop screen glows as I open my email. The document I've spent weeks preparing is attached, ready to send. I click on it one last time, reviewing each element. Formal, letter to Bellamy Gardens, explaining the forged signature. Handwriting analysis report, highlighting the differences between my signature and the forgery. Audio file of Destiny, telling her mate of honor. I signed Andy's name as a favor. To push things along, I press send. Within the hour, my phone rings with an unfamiliar number. The venue manager's voice is professionally restrained, but I hear the underlying tension. Miss Collins, we've received your email. This is highly unusual. We'll need to speak with your sister and parents immediately. I understand, I say. I've also notified my lawyer to contact the credit bureaus. The contract was signed without my consent or knowledge. After the call ends, I draft one more email, this one to my extended family. I keep my explanation dignified, factual, no accusations, just evidence. I attach copies of text messages where I explicitly refuse to pay bank statements showing the pattern of financial exploitation and the venue's confirmation that the signature doesn't match my identification. My phone begins ringing again almost immediately, but not with the calls I expect. It's my cousin Thomas. Holy smokes, Andy. The venue just called Uncle Jim demanding immediate payment or they'll cancel everything. What's going on? Ask Destiny, I say. Or better yet, ask her fiancé's parents. I believe they've just been informed about the forged contract. Over the next few hours, reports filter in through family text chains, wedding guests receiving postponement notices, my parents frantically calling relatives asking for emergency loans, Destiny in tears at the florist, canceling the exotic arrangements, the groom's father insisting on a prenuptial agreement. When my phone finally goes silent around midnight, I pour a glass of wine and step onto my small balcony. The Charleston night air wraps around me like a warm blanket. For the first time in years, my shoulders aren't tight with tension. When I call Destiny the next morning, she answers on the first ring. Come to apologize. Her voice is rough from crying. No. I say the word clean and simple on my tongue. I forgive you, but I won't forget. You've ruined everything. I've started over. I correct her. Charleston is beautiful. My new firm values my work. My apartment gets morning Sunday. We're your family. She whispers. The wedding bill is the consequence of your choices, not mine. I say. Maybe it's time you learned what that feels like. I end the call before she can respond, placing my phone back on the counter. According to James, who still lives in my old city, my parents spent yesterday meeting with loan officers. Destiny has downsized from 8 bridesmaids to 4. The extravagant ice sculpture has been canceled along with the fireworks display and the designer gown. My mother's final voicemail arrives that evening as I'm arranging books on my new shelves. Andy, she begins, her voice catching. We never meant for it to go this far. I let the message play to its end, then delete it without replying. Outside my window, the sun sets over Charleston, painting the sky in colors I never saw in my old life. Some bridges burn for a reason. I close my eyes and breathe deeply, feeling the weight of 76,000 expectations finally lifting from my shoulders. 3 months later, the morning light streams through my Charleston apartment windows, catching the spines of my design books as I arrange them on the reclaimed wood shelves. 3 months ago, these same books were packed in hurried desperation. Today they stand as colorful sentinels of my new life. I smooth my hand over the coffee table I found at a local antique market, feeling the grain of the wood beneath my fingertips. My apartment is modest, but mine, truly mine, with no financial ghosts lurking in the corners. My phone buzzes with a message from Eleanor wishing me luck with my newest project. I adjust my blazer, catch my reflection in the hallway mirror, and notice something different in my posture. My shoulders no longer hunch forward, carrying the invisible weight of family obligation. The southern sunrise bathes my small balcony in gold as I sip my coffee. The lightness I feel isn't just the absence of debt. It's the presence of possibility. 3 months into my new position, Marcus, the senior designer, leans against my desk on Friday afternoon. Andy, we need these concept boards finalized for Monday's presentation. I know it's your weekend, but he trails off, expectation hanging in the air. I'm sorry, but I have plans this weekend, I reply, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. I'd be happy to come in early Monday to help finalize everything. His eyebrows lift slightly. Really, I figured you'd be all about earning some brownie points. I value my personal time. I say the word no resting comfortably on my tongue instead of sticking in my throat like it used to. I'll deliver excellent work during work hours. Later, walking along King Street, I marvel at how easily that boundary formed. No rehearsal needed, no guilt afterward. My therapist calls this progress. Dr. Levine's office has become a weekly sanctuary where family patterns are dissected with clinical precision. The first time you say no is the hardest, she told me during our initial session. Each time after gets a little easier. My journal entries confirm this. The first week in Charleston, woke up panicking about money. Last week spent the whole day exploring without checking my phone once. The genuine laughter that bubbles up during lunch with my new colleagues startles me. At first it sounds foreign to my own ears after so many months of tension. My housewarming gathering is small but vibrant. A week later, Eleanor flew down for the weekend, bringing a potted fiddle leaf fig that now stands proudly by my living room window. James sent a care package with a handwritten note. Proud of you doesn't begin to cover it. Elela Nena raises her glass. To new beginnings and true family, the kind we choose. I blink back tears, realizing family isn't always determined by blood, but by who shows up when it matters. When Tara, our junior designer, confides about a client demanding extra revisions without payment, I recognize the familiar pattern. Your work has value, I tell her, sharing my boundaries without sharing my scars. And so do you. The satisfaction of helping someone avoid the path I traveled feels like closing a circle. When the email with pictures of Destiny's significantly downsized wedding appears on my screen, I feel no surge of vindication. I simply send a congratulations card online and continue with my day. The absence of anger surprises me most, not because I've forgiven, but because I've moved beyond needing to. At sunset, I stand at the Charleston waterfront. The letter from my mother heavy in my hands. The envelope contains the first hints of genuine remorse I've seen in years. I don't rush to respond. The guilt that would have consumed me months ago has been replaced by quiet acceptance. Some bridges burn for a reason, I whisper to the horizon, watching the sun sink into the harbor. The water stretches endlessly before me, full of directions I might choose to sail. Is forgiveness always necessary for healing, or is sometimes walking away the greatest gift you can give yourself? I don't know the answer yet, but for the first time, I have the space to figure it out on my own terms. Story 2. My $500 wedding cake was completely destroyed, but it was the best money I ever spent. Why? Because lying, amidst that bright red mess, was my own sister about to fall into a deep sleep. She had intentionally drugged me right at my wedding to turn me into a drunken mess in front of my wealthy in-laws. I let her have her way, but at a much higher price. A gentle glass swap, a fake smile, and the result was the most satisfying sight of my life. My precious sister collapsing amidst the crumbs of red velvet. But to understand why my own sister wanted to ruin my big day, I have to take you back through the preparation process. I was Pamela, 29 years old, working as a marketing director at a prestigious firm in Charleston, and I had always prided myself on being self-possessed and logical. My younger sister, Sutton, 27, was what she called an influencer, which was a fancy word for unemployed and living a virtual life on social media. What she didn't advertise to her 12,000 followers was the $51,000 in credit card debt she had been hiding from our parents. My parents, Conrad and Bia, had always favored Sutton. Always. It defied all logic, all reason, all fairness. I could bring home straight A's, scholarships, job promotions. Didn't matter. Sutton could post a selfie with a motivational quote stolen from Pinterest and mother would frame it. Sutton's jealousy reached its absolute peak when I got engaged to Sterling. Sterling was an orthopedic surgery resident at the medical university. Brilliant and kind, with hands that can reconstruct shattered bones and a smile that makes my heart skip. But what really sent Sutton into a spiral wasn't his career or his character. It was his last name. Sterling comes from old Charleston money, the kind of family whose ancestors signed important documents and had ships named after them. The kind of family that still gets invited to garden parties at historic estates. The kind of family Sutton desperately wanted access to. During the wedding preparations, she turned into an absolute nightmare. It started 3 months before the wedding. I was sitting in my apartment reviewing vendor contracts when Sutton showed up unannounced. She walked in wearing yoga pants that cost more than most people's monthly grocery budget and carrying a designer handbag I knew she couldn't afford. I've been thinking, she announced, not bothering with hello, and I should be your maid of honor. I looked up from my spreadsheet. Sudden, I already asked Adeline. Your lawyer friend. She wrinkled her nose like she'd smelled something rotten. Pamela, this is a wedding with old money elements. Do you really want someone who wears pantsuits to everything standing next to you in photos that will be in the society pages? Adeline is my best friend. She's been there for me through everything. And I'm your sister. Sutton's voice took on that whiny edge I knew too well. Your only sister. What will people think if your own flesh and blood isn't your maid of honor? It'll look like we're estranged. It'll look bad for both of us. Besides, I need this. Pamela, do you know how good this will be for my brand? A wedding at the historic Charleston Hotel with Sterling's family. I could gain thousands of followers. I should have said no right then. Should have held my ground. But then she called, Mother. 2 hours later, both our parents showed up at my door. Mother was already dabbing at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. And Father wore his disappointed expression, the one he'd perfected over decades of making me feel guilty for existing. Pamela, sweetheart, Mother said, taking my hands in hers. Sutton is devastated. Absolutely devastated. She feels like you don't love her. That's not, I never said that. I just wanted your sister is going through a difficult time right now. Father interrupted, his voice carrying that authoritative tone he'd use when the discussion was over before it began. The least you can do is include her in your special day. Make her feel valued. Just indulge your sister, Mother added, squeezing my hands. Don't make her sad. It's one day, Pamela. Surely you can be generous for one day. The manipulation was textbook. They'd been doing this my entire life, making Sutton's feelings my responsibility, her happiness my burden. Fine, I said. The word tasted like ashes. You can be the maid of honor. Sutton squealed and clapped her hands. Mother beamed. Father nodded approvingly. Adeline, when I called to break the news, was silent for a long moment. Then are you sure about this, Pam? No, I admitted. But it's easier than fighting them all. Easier isn't always better. She was right, of course, but I'd already made my first mistake. I'd already nodded in agreement. I didn't know then that this concession had paved the way for Sutton's most vicious plot. 2 weeks before the wedding, Sutton texted me, Need you to pay for my bridesmaid dress. I'm a little short this month. The dress she'd chosen without consulting me was in $1. $800 silk gown, from a boutique that required appointments and served champagne during fittings. When I'd suggested more affordable options for the bridesmaids, she'd actually laughed. You're marrying into old money, Pamela. We can't look cheap in the photos. What would Sterling's family think I transferred the money? Didn't even argue. Looking back now, standing in that ballroom with the knowledge of what she'd planned to do to me, I can see it all clearly. Every demand, every manipulation, every time our parents made me swallow my needs to feed her ego, it had all been leading to this moment. Sutton didn't just want to be part of my wedding. She wanted to destroy it, and I almost let her. The Charleston Historic Hotel ballroom was a vision of Southern elegance. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over round tables, dressed in ivory silk. Each centerpiece a cascade of white roses and trailing ivy. The hardwood floors gleamed, reflecting the glow of hundreds of candles. At the far end of the room, on a table of its own, stood the centerpiece that had cost me more than most people's monthly rent. The wedding cake. 6 tiers of red velvet perfection, each layer wrapped in ivory fondant and decorated with edible gold leaf that caught the light like scattered stars. Handmade sugar flowers, Pays roses gardenias, cascaded down one side in a breathtaking display of the baker's artistry. It cost $500, and it was absolutely worth every penny, though, not for the reasons I'd originally thought. I sat at the head table positioned exactly where I'd specified in my carefully drawn seating chart. As a marketing director, I understand the power of image, the importance of angles, the way a photograph can tell a story or destroy a reputation. I'd spent hours planning this setup. Sterling sat to my left, devastatingly handsome in his tailored tuxedo, his dark hair perfectly styled, his hand warm over mine on the white tablecloth. To my right sat Sutton, poured into a champagne-colored silk gown that probably cost more than she'd admit, her hair in an elaborate updo that must have taken hours. Next to Sterling was David, his best friend and head groomsman, a cardiologist with an easy smile and the kind of steady presence that made him perfect for the role. I'd instructed the hotel staff specifically on this arrangement. Husband on the left meant that in almost every captured moment of us as a couple, we'd be facing each other. My facial angle would always be flattering. The lighting would catch my features perfectly. I thought I'd planned for everything. In front of each of us sat identical crystal champagne flutes provided by the hotel. No engravings, no distinguishing marks. They caught the candlelight, the bubbles rising in perfect golden streams through the expensive vintage Sterling's family had gifted for the toast. The main course had just been cleared away. Herb-crusted lamb with roasted vegetables plated like art. The staff moved efficiently between tables, the soft clink of cutlery and china creating a sophisticated symphony. Conversation hummed around us, punctuated by bursts of laughter from Sterling's college friends at table 7. Sterling leaned close to my ear, his breath warm against my skin. "Did you see Uncle Richard trying to flirt with your great-aunt Miriam? I think he's had too much wine." I turned completely to my left to look at him, laughing, my body rotating to face my new husband. In my peripheral vision, I caught movement to my right. Sutton's hand. Her hand moved across the table with practiced smoothness, reaching as if to adjust my place card, which had shifted slightly askew during dinner. A perfectly innocent gesture, helpful even. But as her palm glided over my champagne flute, it tilted just slightly. The colorless liquid from the tiny glass vial she held in her palm fell into my glass and dissolved instantly into the bubbles. The carbonation hid everything. No color change, no residue, nothing to indicate that anything had changed. She pulled her hand back quickly, repositioning my place card with a satisfied little smile. She thought no one saw, but Sutton had forgotten about Adeline. My best friend since law school sat at the VIP table, directly across from us, positioned with a perfect view of the head table. While Sutton had been so focused on me on Sterling on making sure we didn't notice her little trick. She'd completely overlooked the woman with the criminal defense lawyer's eye for detail and the instincts of someone who'd spent years studying how people commit crimes. Adeline had seen everything. The gliding hand, the falling liquid, sudden smirk. My phone lying face up on the table next to my champagne flute buzzed. Bzizzed. The sound was subtle, lost in the ambient noise of 200 guests celebrating at felt it. Saw the screen light up with an incoming message. I glanced down. An iMessage from Adeline. 5 short words, all in capitals. Swap glasses. She drugged it. My heart stopped. Actually stopped, then started again with a painful thud that I felt in my throat, my chest, my fingertips. The world tilted slightly. The chandelier light suddenly too bright. The sounds around me suddenly too loud. I froze, every muscle in my body locking into place. But years of client presentations, of high-stakes meetings, of maintaining composure, when campaigns crashed or executives panicked. All of that training kicked in. My face remained calm, neutral, perhaps a touch concerned, as any bride might be reading a text during her reception, but nothing more. I glanced up slowly, carefully catching Adeline's eye across the room. She gave me the smallest nod, decisive, certain she'd seen it. She was sure. I looked down at the champagne flute in front of me. The golden liquid sparkled innocently, bubbles still rising in those perfect streams. It looked exactly like Sterling's glass, exactly like David's, exactly like Sutton's, but it wasn't. This was no longer ordinary sibling jealousy. This wasn't Sutton throwing a tantrum, or making demands or crying to our parents. This was a calculated, targeted attack designed to ruin my reputation in front of my husband's family. She'd planned this, had waited for the perfect moment. She wanted me to drink that glass. Wanted me to become disoriented, confused, sloppy. Wanted Sterling's family, the prestigious old money family she was so obsessed with, to see me make a fool of myself. To see their new daughter-in-law as a drunk, as someone unfit for their son, someone who couldn't handle her alcohol at her own wedding. The people-pleaser in me. The one who'd spent 29 years swallowing my feelings and accommodating Sutton's tantrums and nodding when our parents demanded I make her happy. That version of Pamela died in that moment. I knew I had to act. Had to swap the glasses somehow. Turn Sutton's plan back on her. But she was right there, less than 2 feet away. Her attention fixed on both champagne flutes like a hawk watching prey. I sat frozen in my chair, hyper-aware of every detail. The weight of my phone in my hand, the condensation forming on the outside of the poisoned champagne flute, the sound of Sutton's breathing beside me, quick and excited, anticipating her victory. She was watching those glasses, both of them. I couldn't move, couldn't act. Not while her eyes were on them. I needed an opportunity, a distraction. I sat there, heart pounding, waiting. Sterling squeezed my hand, mistaking my tension for wedding day nerves. "You okay?" he murmured. "Perfect," I managed. The lie smooth and practiced. And then fate sent me the most powerful woman I'd ever met. I heard it. The click of heels on hardwood. Expensive heels, the kind that cost more than some people's car payments. The sound came from behind us, from the direction of the VIP waiting room, a private space. Case the hotel had designated for immediate family to use for touch-ups and moments of quiet. The door opened. Mrs. Eleanor stepped out. Sterling's mother was a force of nature contained in a 5'6" frame. Her Oscar de la Renta gown, navy silk, with intricate beading that probably cost more than my car, fit her perfectly. Her silver hair was styled in an elegant, shiny diamond earrings caught the light. She'd clearly been touching up her makeup, her lips now a fresh shade of classic red. She walked along the back of our row of chairs, her path taking her directly behind the head table. Click, click, click. The sound of her heels was distinctive in the brief lull between courses, audible over the soft conversation. I felt Sutton stiffened beside me. If there was one thing my sister couldn't resist, it was an opportunity to impress someone important. And Mrs. Eleanor was the most important person at this wedding. The matriarch of a family whose name appeared on buildings and scholarship funds, whose opinion could open doors or close them forever. Sutton's head whipped around so fast, I'm surprised she didn't get whiplash. She practically leaped from her chair, stepping directly into Mrs. Eleanor's path, with the enthusiasm of a golden retriever seeing its owner after a long day. "Oh, Mrs. Eleanor." Sutton's voice went up an octave, dripping with manufactured sweetness. "Were you resting in the VIP room too? I hope the reception isn't too overwhelming for you. I know these events can be absolutely exhausting, especially with so many people wanting your attention." She'd turned her back completely to the table, to me, to the glasses. In my head, Adeline's text blazed like neon. Swap glasses. This was it. My only chance. My hands moved to the bases of both champagne flutes. My fingers were steady. Years of handling delicate presentation materials had given me precision I'd never appreciated until this moment. I didn't lift the glasses. That would be too obvious, too noticeable. Even with Sutton's back turned, someone might see a guest, a guy, server, even Sterling, if he happened to glance down. Instead, I slid them. Meanwhile, my sister's voice echoed behind me. I must say Sutton continued, not waiting for a response, reaching out to lightly touch the sleeve of Mrs. Eleanor's gown. "This Oscar de la Renta dress was absolutely born for you. The beating the cut. It's perfection. You have the most incredible eye for fashion. I was just telling Pamela earlier how elegant you looked. Simply elegant. The silk tablecloth was perfect for this expensive smooth, with just enough friction to control the movement, but not enough to resist it. I applied gentle pressure to the bases of both glasses, pushing my drugged glass toward Sutton's position, while simultaneously pulling her clean glass toward mine. They glided across the fabric like figure skaters on ice, moving just 1 millimeter above the surface, the liquid inside barely rippling. Swish. I rotated, the new glass slightly in my position, turning it so the faint lipstick mark Sutton had left on the rim faced away from where she'd been sitting. The entire process took 5 seconds, exactly the time it took Sutton to finish her effusive compliment about the dress and start in on how much she admired Mrs. Eleanor's philanthropic work with the Children's Hospital. No one noticed. The servers were at the far end of the ballroom. The guests were engaged in their own conversations. Sterling was watching his Uncle Richard, who had indeed cornered my great-aunt Miriam near the bar, but Adeline noticed. I glanced toward the VIP table. She was holding her wine glass, but her eyes were on me. When our gazes met, the corner of her mouth lifted in the smallest smile. She raised her glass fractionally, a toast only I could see. My network of allies had worked perfectly, and I knew with absolute certainty that Adeline wouldn't take her eyes off my sister for the rest of the night. She'd watch. She'd document. She'd be ready. Mrs. Eleanor extracted herself from Sutton's attention with the practiced grace of someone who'd been handling social climbers for decades. "How kind of you to say so, dear. If you'll excuse me, I should return to my table." She glided away, leaving a cloud of expensive perfume in her wake. Sutton turned back to her seat and practically bounced into her chair, her face flushed with triumph. She thought she'd just secured major points with my mother-in-law, thought she'd had a successful networking moment that would definitely be worth an Instagram story later. She glanced at the table. The 2 champagne flutes sat exactly as they had before she turned around. Same positions, same fullness, same innocent sparkle of golden bubbles. Her eyes flicked to them briefly, then away. No suspicion, no concern. Why would there be? They looked identical. And her overconfidence, her absolute certainty that she'd outsmarted me, that her plan was flawless, had killed any instinct to double-check it. She reached for the glass in front of her now. The drugged one. Her smile was toxic, triumphant. "Come now," she said, lifting the crystal flute toward me. "Let's toast to your happiness, Pamela." I raised my clean glass, forcing my face into a smile that I filled with hidden meaning. Every ounce of satisfaction, every bit of delayed justice, every year of being told to accommodate her, I put it all into that smile. "Thank you, sister," I said softly. "To a night we cannot forget." The crystal flutes met with a clear, pure chime that rang out across our section of the table. Clink. Sutton brought the glass to her lips and drank deeply, her eyes locked on mine over the rim. She thought she was watching her plan unfold. Thought she was seeing the beginning of my downfall. I sipped my clean champagne and watched her drink her own sentence. The colorless liquid melatonin, whatever dose she'd prepared for me, slid down her throat with the expensive vintage champagne. She set her glass down with a satisfied sigh, still smiling. I smiled back and waited. After the toast, I made my move. I had to sell this. Had to make Sutton believe her plan was working exactly as she designed it. So I went quiet. I turned slightly away from the table conversation, let my smile fade into something more neutral, more subdued. When Sterling asked me a question about the dessert service timing, I answered in soft, vague terms. When David tried to include me in a joke about the worst wedding speeches they'd witnessed in medical school, I managed only a weak laugh. Sutton noticed immediately. I could feel her eyes on me, could sense the way she leaned slightly closer, studying my face for signs of the drugs taking effect. I gave her what she wanted. A bride growing quieter, a little disconnected, slightly unfocused. The corner of her mouth twitched upward. She thought it was working. Thought I was beginning to feel the effects of the melatonin. That in a few more minutes I'd be stumbling, slurring, making a spectacle of myself in front of 200 guests and Sterling's entire family. She sat back in her chair, practically vibrating with excitement, her confidence growing with every passing minute. But what Sutton didn't realize, what her self-absorption wouldn't let her see, was that the drugs were in her system now, being absorbed into her bloodstream, beginning their journey toward her brain. The MC's voice crackled through the sound system, smooth and professional. "Ladies and gentlemen, we now invite the best man to say a few words." The ballroom quieted, conversations trailing off as guests turned their attention to the small stage area near the cake table. David stood buttoning his jacket with an easy grin. I checked the time. The evening was running precisely on schedule, just past 8:00. He made his way to the microphone, and for the next several minutes he had the entire room laughing. Stories about Sterling's terrible cooking in their shared apartment during residency. The time Sterling had accidentally worn mismatched shoes to a formal hospital presentation. The moment David had known Sterling was serious about me because he'd started actually doing his laundry instead of buying new clothes when he ran out of clean ones. The timing was perfect. David's speech created a buffer, a period where all attention was focused elsewhere, where the subtle changes beginning to happen in Sutton's body would go unnoticed in the darkened ballroom. I watched her from the corner of my eye. She was still smiling, still playing her part as the supportive maid of honor, but I saw it the way she shifted slightly in her seat. The way her hand came up to touch her temple briefly, the small crease that formed between her eyebrows. The melatonin was starting to work. Liquid melatonin acts faster than pills, absorbing quickly into the bloodstream. Sutton would be feeling it now, a subtle heaviness in her limbs, a gentle fuzziness creeping into her thoughts. But she'd mistake it for nervousness about her upcoming speech, or perhaps the champagne hitting a little harder than expected. She'd never suspect the truth. David finished his speech to enthusiastic applause and returned to his seat, clapping Sterling on the shoulder as he passed. Sterling stood to hug his best friend, and the two of them shared a moment that made the photographer's camera flash repeatedly. The MC returned to the microphone. "Thank you, David. And now we'd love to hear from the maid of honor." The moment arrived. Sutton stood. I watched her carefully, remembering every detail. The way she had to steady herself briefly with a hand on the table. The slight pause before she stepped away from her chair as if gathering her coordination. The forced brightness in her expression that didn't quite reach her eyes. She thought it was nerves. Thought it was the natural anxiety of public speaking, but I knew better. The drugs were taking hold, creating that characteristic light-headed sensation, making her limbs feel heavy and disconnected. In another 10 minutes, she'd be fighting to keep her eyes open. But right now, in this moment, she still had enough clarity, enough diluted confidence to believe she was in control. She walked toward the stage area, her steps, perhaps a fraction slower than normal, but still steady enough, and she headed straight for the spot she'd probably planned for days, right next to the cake tower. Of course she did. The $8, $500 red velvet masterpiece with its edible gold leaf and handmade sugar flowers would be the perfect backdrop for the photos she'd post later. The expensive cake would signal wealth status connection to old money. It would be visible proof that she'd made it, that she was part of this world. She positioned herself as close to the cake table as possible, probably closer than the catering staff would have liked. Her left hand held a newly refilled wine glass, and her right hand accepted the wireless microphone from the MC. The microphone, that beautiful, treacherous wireless microphone that would broadcast every word to the entire ballroom through the sophisticated sound system Sterling's family had paid extra for. Sutton didn't think about that. Didn't consider what might happen if she lost control of her words, if the drugs in her system made her truth-telling and uninhibited. She just smiled at the crowd and began to speak. "Good evening, everyone." She started, her voice amplified perfectly through the speakers. "For those who don't know me, I'm Sutton Pamela's sister and her maid of honor." Her words were still clear, still controlled, but I could see the effort it took. The way she stood, just a little too still, like someone trying not to sway. I've known Pamela my entire life, obviously, and I have to say she paused for effect playing to the crowd. It's been quite a journey watching her find someone worthy of her. Polite laughter from the guests. Pamela has always been the responsible one, the organized one, the one with the perfect plans and the perfect career. There was an edge to her voice now, something sharp hiding beneath the saccharine sweetness. And now she has the perfect husband from the perfect family. I sat below the stage, my hand finding Sterling and squeezing tight. He squeezed back. He had no idea what was coming. None of them did. Sutton raised her wine glass, slightly the liquid catching the light. "So here's to Pamela," she said, her smile wide and fake and poisonous. "To my perfect sister and her perfect life." The crowd murmured appreciation glasses raising in response. But I sat there watching, waiting for the moment when the melatonin would hit full force, waiting for karma to strike, waiting for my sister to fall. The applause for my speech was still echoing through the ballroom when Sutton raised her wine, glass high. That practiced smile stretched across her face. She delivered her performance flawlessly. The loving sister, the gracious bridesmaid, the picture of family unity. But I knew better. I'd always known better. To my sister and her new husband, she announced, her voice carrying that theatrical lilt she'd perfected for her Instagram videos. "May your marriage be everything mine will be someday." The crowd murmured their approval. Sterling's hand found mine under the table, his fingers warm and steady. I watched Sutton bring the crystal flute to her lips, my original glass, the one she'd so carefully doctored, and take a long, triumphant sip. The transformation wasn't immediate. She lowered the glass, still smiling, still playing her part. But then I saw it, the slight wobble in her stance, the way her free hand reached for the podium, as if the floor had suddenly shifted beneath her feet. "Thank you all," for her words, slurred at the edges. She blinked rapidly, her eyelids growing heavy. The crystal flute trembled in her grip. Adeline leaned close to me, her voice barely a whisper. "How much did she use? How much did she use?" "I don't know," I murmured back, but judging by how fast it's hitting her, a lot more than the recommended dose. She swayed visibly, now her knuckles white as she gripped the microphone stand. The entire ballroom had gone quiet. 300 guests watching as my sister's carefully constructed facade crumbled in real time. "Why?" Her voice cracked through the speakers, confused and frightened. "Why is the ceiling spinning?" The wine glass slipped from her fingers first. It tumbled through the air in what felt like slow-motion crystal, catching the light before it shattered against the stage floor. The sound was sharp, final, like a gunshot in the sudden silence. Then Sutton's legs gave out completely. She pitched forward her right hand, still clutching the microphone in a death grip, as if that slim piece of metal could somehow anchor her to consciousness. Her body moved with the terrible weight of dead gravity. No attempt to catch herself, no protective instinct left in her drugged system. The impact was catastrophic. Boom. 6 tiers of red velvet wedding cake, $8, $500 worth of artisanal perfection. Each layer carefully crafted with gold leaf details and delicate sugar flowers exploded on contact. Sutton's face hit first, then her entire torso, her $1 $800 bridesmaid dress plunging into the destruction like a diver entering water. Except instead of water, there was buttercream frosting cake crumbs and the deep crimson interior of red velvet layers. The visual was horrifying. White cream mixing with red cake created something that looked disturbingly like a crime scene. My sister lay motionless in the wreckage, her platinum blonde hair matted with frosting. Her ivory dress now stained beyond recognition. It looked like she'd been destroyed violently in front of 300 witnesses. My mother's scream pierced the air. "Sutton." But Sterling was already moving. His doctor's training kicked in before anyone else could even process what had happened. He was on the stage in seconds, his tuxedo forgotten, as he dropped to his knees beside the cake wreckage. "Someone cut the music," he commanded, his voice calm but absolute. The jazz quartet fell silent immediately. Sterling worked fast, his hands moving with professional precision. He grabbed Sutton's shoulder and firmly rolled her onto her side to clear her airway, wiping the thick layer of buttercream from her nose and mouth. I watched my husband check her pulse at her neck, then lift her eyelids to examine her pupils, his expression growing darker with each assessment. The entire ballroom held its breath. David stood frozen at the head table. Eleanor had her hand pressed to her heart. My father was pushing through the crowd, his face pale. The movement of being rolled over seemed to jolt Sutton. Her hand was still wrapped around the microphone, the wireless device dragging across her chin as Sterling positioned her. In her delirium, her eyes flickered open, unfocused, unseeing. She looked directly at Sterling, but I could tell she wasn't really seeing him. No. The word came out broken, barely audible, but the microphone, now resting right near her lips, picked it up perfectly. Her voice echoed through the ballroom speakers, distorted and weak. Wrong glass. The drugged glass. The confession hung in the air like smoke. Time seemed to freeze. Every single person in that ballroom had heard it. The words were slurred, confused, but unmistakable. Wrong glass. Drugged glass. The implication was inescapable. Sterling's hands stilled. He raised his head, slowly, his gaze moving from Sutton's unconscious form to where my parents now stood at the edge of the stage. His expression was cold, colder than I'd ever seen it. "She isn't having a stroke," he said, each word precise and clinical. "This is a synergistic toxicity, alcohol potentiating a central nervous system depressant. These are classic symptoms of a sedative overdose." My mother made a choking sound. "What? No, that's not..." She wouldn't. Sterling pulled out his phone and called 911, briefly explaining the situation to the dispatcher, using medical terminology before hanging up. My father finally found his voice. "This is ridiculous. Sutton would never. There must be some mistake." Sterling ended the call and stood towering over both my parents. The look he gave them could have frozen fire. "You two will go to the hospital with her. I won't call the police tonight." He paused, and I saw something dangerous flash in his eyes. "But if anything else happens, if there's even one more incident, I can't promise that same courtesy." The threat was clear. My father, who'd spent my entire life bulldozing over everyone with his opinions and demands, actually stepped back. He opened his mouth, then closed it again, completely silenced by Sterling's absolute authority. The ambulance arrived within minutes, the advantage of being in downtown Charleston. The paramedics loaded Sutton onto a gurney, her face still smeared with frosting and cake crumbs, her dress ruined beyond repair. My mother climbed into the ambulance without a word, her face twisted in that familiar expression of martyred suffering. My father lingered at the ballroom entrance, looking back at me with something I couldn't quite read. Accusation, guilt, fear. I met his gaze, steadily refusing to look away, refusing to give him the comfort of my submission. Then he was gone, and the ambulance pulled away into the Charleston night. The ballroom was chaos. Guests murmuring in shocked clusters, hotel staff, frozen in uncertainty, the destroyed cake, a crimson monument to the evening's disaster. I stood at the head table, Sterling's hand in mine, and felt something unexpected wash over me. Relief. Pure, uncomplicated relief. Adeline appeared at my side. Her phone held up like a trophy. I recorded the whole thing. She announced her criminal, lawyer instincts sharp as ever. Both the fall and the confession. Audio is crystal clear. She tapped the screen and Sutton's drugged voice played back. Wrong glass. The drugged glass. Several nearby guests heard it. The whispers intensified. I watched the truth ripple through the crowd like a stone dropped in still water. My sister, the golden child, the beloved youngest daughter, had just confessed to attempted poisoning in front of 300 witnesses. The hunter had become the prey. Eleanor approached us, her Oscar de la Renta gown, somehow still immaculate despite the chaos. She looked at the destroyed cake, then at me, her expression unreadable. "Well," she said finally, a hint of dry amusement in her voice, "this is certainly the most memorable wedding I've ever attended." The hotel manager materialized, wringing his hands. "Mrs. Ashford, I am so terribly sorry about this incident. Should we end? The reception, given the circumstances, I looked at the ruined cake. Red velvet crumbs scattered across the stage like evidence of violence. White frosting smeared across the floor. The beautiful 6-tier masterpiece reduced to rubble. $500 worth of destroyed artistry, and all I felt was light. I turned to Sterling. His blue eyes searched mine, concerned but not pitying. "How are you doing?" he asked quietly. "This is the first time I've seen you breathe easy since we got engaged," he said before I could answer. He was right. For months I'd been walking on eggshells, managing my family's expectations, trying to prevent exactly this kind of scene. I'd paid for Sutton's dress, included her in every detail, bent over backward to keep the peace, and she'd tried to drug me anyway. But now, the monster had been driven away. I looked at the hotel manager and smiled a real smile, not the practiced one I'd been wearing all night. "Clean it up. Bring out more wine and whatever desserts the hotel has in the kitchen. The night has only just begun." The manager blinked. You want to continue?" "This is my wedding reception," I said firmly, "and I'm going to celebrate with the people who actually care about me." Something shifted in the room after that. The guests who'd come out of obligation, my parents' friends, the society matrons who'd attended for appearances, made their quiet exits. But the people who remained, they were ours. Sterling's medical school colleagues, my work friends, Adeline and David Eleanor, and the family members who'd actually taken the time to know us. The jazz quartet started playing again. The hotel brought out trays of chocolate tortoise and lemon tarts. Someone opened more champagne. Without the weight of my family's judgment hanging over everything, the reception transformed into something genuine. I danced with Sterling under the chandeliers, his arms around my waist, and felt the tension I'd been carrying for years finally release. "No regrets." "No," he murmured against my hair. "None," I said, and meant it. Adeline caught my eye from across the dance floor, raising her champagne flute in a silent toast. She'd been warning me about my family for years. Tonight she'd been proven right in the most spectacular way possible. The next morning, sunlight streaming through the hotel suite windows. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "How could you let this happen?" Sutton only did it because she felt left out. She felt pressured seeing you enter such a wealthy family. She made a mistake. You need to forgive her. Family is family. I read it twice, feeling the familiar guilt try to take root. The old Pamela, the one who'd spent 29 years trying to earn her parents' love, would have replied, would have apologized, would have found a way to make it her fault. But that Pamela had died somewhere between the glass swap and the cake destruction. I deleted the message without responding. Then I blocked the number. Sterling watched me from the bed, understanding without asking. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said, and realized it was true. "I really am." I blocked my father's number next, then Sutton's. One by one, I cut the threads that had bound me to their toxicity for my entire life. No more money transfers to cover Sutton's debits. No more guilt-trip phone calls. No more playing the role of the disappointing daughter. Freedom tasted like the Charleston morning air, salty and clean. 1 year later, Sterling took me to a prenatal checkup at Charleston Medical. I was 8 months along, my belly round and firm under my sundress. The ultrasound technician smiled as she moved the wand across my skin. "Everything looks perfect," she said. "Your baby girl is healthy and growing right, on schedule." A daughter. Sterling's hand tightened around mine, his eyes bright with unshed tears. We'd talked about this moment for months, about the kind of parents we wanted to be, the kind of family we wanted to create. "No golden child," I said quietly, echoing the promise we'd made to each other. "Every child equal." Sterling agreed. Always. We drove home through the historic district, past the antebellum homes and oak trees dripping with Spanish moss. My phone, new number. New contacts sat silent in my purse. My mother had tried to reach out through mutual acquaintances, leaving messages about wanting to make amends and be part of her grandchild's life. I hadn't responded. Some bridges once burned should stay ashes. That evening, I sat on our back porch with my laptop composing a post for the online forum where I'd been documenting my story. The wedding disaster had been too spectacular to keep completely private. Strong opinions. I need your thoughts on a few things I typed, because my family still won't leave me alone, and I want outside perspectives. Question 1 was, I too harsh for swapping the glasses? My mother says a good sister would have just poured the wine away instead of letting Sutton harm herself. Question 2. Sutton destroyed an $8 $500 cake. Should I sue her in civil court for compensation or just consider it tuition fees for her life lesson? Question 3. Do you agree with me that it's better to lose $8 $500 to get rid of toxic people than to preserve a fake perfect wedding? Please leave a comment. I hit post and closed the laptop. Inside, Sterling was cooking dinner, humming along to jazz music. Through the window, I could see him moving around our kitchen, our home, our life, built on honesty instead of manipulation. My daughter kicked a firm little flutter against my ribs. I pressed my hand to the spot, feeling the miracle of new life, new beginnings. The wedding cake had been destroyed. The bridesmaid dress ruined, my family ties severed, and I had never been happier. The monster was gone. The cage was open.